and gentlemen, good evening and thank you for tuning in to Canal Algérie's nightly news. On to the headlines. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, chairs a working session to examine the air transport situation. The President of the Republic receives a Ugandan delegation led by the Special Envoy of Uganda's President and Senior Advisor for Middle East Affairs. And Algeria is extensively used by some French parties campaigning for the 2027 presidential elections, fueling more tensions between the two countries. Welcome back. First off, the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, chaired a working meeting to examine the air transport situation, particularly the situation of Air Algérie and Tassili Airlines. Following the meeting, it was decided to establish a company specializing in domestic air transport affiliated with Air Algérie. The meeting was attended by the Premier and the Principal Private Secretary to the Presidency of the Republic and the Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense, the Chief of Staff of the PNA, the Minister of State, the Minister of Energy, Mines and Renewable Energies, the Minister of Transport, the CEO of Sonatrach, the Director General of the National Civil Aviation Agency, the CEO of the Company for the Management of Services and Facilities at Algiers Airport, the CEO of Air Algérie, and the CEO of Tassili Airlines. To another presidential activity where the head of state received today a Ugandan delegation led by Mohamed Ahmed Kissoul, Special Envoy of the Ugandan President and Senior Advisor in charge of Middle Eastern Affairs. The audience took place in the presence of the Principal Private Secretary to the Presidency of the Republic, Ba'alem, the Minister of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, Advisor to the President of the Republic in charge of Religious Affairs, Zawayas and Quranic Schools, Mohammed Hassouri, the Minister of Religious Affairs and Endowments, Arwaqs Yusuf Bilmahdi, the President of the High Islamic Council, Mabrouk Azid al-Khair. At the end of the meeting, the senior advisor to the Ugandan President for Middle Eastern Affairs stated that Uganda will benefit from the Algerian experience in the management of religious affairs.
The meeting we held with the President of the Republic was fruitful with target objectives. We are here to profit from Algeria's expertise in running religious affairs, either at the level of organization or development, to be with the level of the world progress. The Algerian President accepted our request and instructed his advisor to review this issue in a profound way after Ramadan. Thus, Uganda will profit from Algeria's experience. We tackled as well trade affairs seen as a lever to promote bilateral relations and make them more profitable.
تناول حديثنا نوعا ما من شؤون التجارة كأحد العوامل التي تقوي العلاقات وتجعلها ذات نفع للجميع. شكرا.
The Prime Minister Nadir Al-Arbawi chaired a government meeting to study the draft multifaceted national strategy to combat drugs and psychotropic substances for the period 2024-2029, which the President of the Republic instructed the government to prepare to combat and prevent this phenomenon. In this context, the government examined ways to strengthen the legislative framework for the suppression of various crimes related to drugs and psychotropic substances. The government also studied the final version of the preliminary bill on endowments within the framework of creating university excellence pools in certain disciplines, enhancing the economic role of universities, promoting their openness to their national and international environment, and enhancing its attractiveness. The government listened to a presentation on the project to establish university hubs and install university facades, including a set of practical and organizational measures to implement this approach. The government also studied the draft executive decree approving the renewal of a license to establish and operate an e-communication network open to the public via GMPCS and provide electronic communication services to the public, granted to Algerian Telecom Satellite Company. Finally, the government listened to two presentations on the state of the national market during the holy month of Ramadan and the various measures taken to ensure its supply, especially of widely consumed goods. In France, attack in Algeria has become a political tactic to gain more visibility, with the far right focusing its efforts on a hostile speech towards Algeria, using it to court voters at the risk of deepening divisions. Manal Ma'ava explains.
The French right and far right exploit tensions with Algeria, fueling nationalist disputes to rally their electorate ahead of the 2027 presidential election. Algeria is clearly trying to humiliate France, and we must consider all available means in response.
J'y vois les prémices de la bataille électorale.
I see this as the beginning of the 2027 electoral battle. Algeria is becoming an ideal catalyst for a right wing seeking power, especially with the possible rise of the Rassemblement National.
Et constante de l'échiquier politique.
Rather than managing crisis, the French Interior Minister seems to be orchestrating them, alternately playing the roles of foreign minister and president. Constantly present on television, Bruno Retailleau multiplied incendiary statements, fueling hatred and division in service of a clear political agenda.
C'est quand même assez intéressant de voir un ministre de l'Intérieur.
It is striking to see an interior minister taken in charge of the foreign policy, especially given his questionable political legitimacy. Normally, such matters aren't his job, but he is using an anti-Algerian stance for political purposes. Determined to make Algeria its main scapegoat, the French right and far right use a well-honed strategy, exploiting tensions to expand their influence and court a radicalized electorate.
Coming up in our news edition. More restrictions are being imposed on Moroccans while the Makhzen keeps plundering Western Sahara's natural resources, violating the international law. Welcome back. In Morocco, the regime is struggling to maintain a facade of stability, whereas the truth is quite different. Electricity and water shortages in the kingdom are worsening the already dire living conditions endured by civilians amid the complete absence of authorities whose sole purpose is to continue plundering Western Saharan resources for its own benefit. Story by Minal Mav.
The Makhzen's normalization with the Zionist entity continues to escalate, now with the approval of two Zionist companies to explore natural gas in occupied Western Sahara. This move defies international law and EU resolutions, barring Morocco from exploiting the region's resources. While the country's elite profits, the Sahrawi people endure extreme poverty and dire conditions. We haven't had electricity since the beginning of Ramadan. What a shame. In 2025 and we don't have electricity. Beyond plundering Sahrawi resources and forcing its people into dire conditions, the Makhzen is deeply involved in international drug trafficking and organized crime. Spanish police, with Europol's support, dismantled the macro mafia in Marabeya, seizing 873 kilograms of cocaine, whereas in Toulouse, French authorities arrested a Moroccan citizen, one of Europe's top cannabis traffickers.
In other developments, while taking part in the proceedings of the ordinary session of the Commission on the Status of Women in New York, the Minister of National Solidarity, Family and Women's Affairs, Soraya Mouloudji, affirmed today that the constitutional amendment in Algeria in 2020 enshrined the principle of gender equality in rights and duties. It did not neglect promoting women's political participation and their access to positions of responsibility, while emphasizing the principle of parity in the labor market, in addition to constitutionalizing protection against violence. She noted that women in Algeria hold high positions in senior jobs. On to the operational report of the People's National Army's activity in the past week. In the context of the fight against terrorism, detachments of the PNA arrested 6 support elements of terrorist groups during separate operations across the national territory. In the framework of the fight against organized crime and the continuation of the tireless efforts aimed at countering the scourge of drug trafficking in our country, combined detachments of the PNA intercepted in coordination with the different security services in operations across the military regions 50 drug traffickers, an averted attempt to introduce 9 quintals and 5 5 kilograms of processed beef through the borders with Morocco, while over 2,954,000 psychotropic tablets were seized. In Tamnaras, Borjoji Mukhtar, Ingizam, detachment of the People's National Army, arrested 145 individuals and seized 56 vehicles, 191 generators, 139 jackhammers, 7 metal detectors, as well as quantities of mixture of raw gold and stones, explosives, detonation tools, and other equipment used in illegal gold mining operations. On the other hand, 31 other individuals were arrested, 1 automatic pistol, 6 hunting rifles, 48,470 liters of fuel, as well as 14 tons of tobacco and 116 tons of foodstuffs intended for smuggling and speculation were seized during separate operations across the national territory. Similarly, 417 illegal immigrants of different nationalities were arrested across the national territory. Sport now. The head of the Algerian Football Association, Walid Sadi, was elected by accumulation member of the CAF Executive Committee during the 4th Extraordinary General Assembly held in Cairo, Egypt.
مبروك للجزائر. الجزائر اليوم تنتصر.
Today's election marks Algeria's comeback to the African level, thanks to the efforts of all, notably to a wise policy under the aegis of the President of the Republic, who backs sport and football in particular. The authorities were behind the sporting infrastructure. Thus, the Algerian Football Association has to cope with. All in all, Algeria is back, and the future will be brighter.
During Ramadan, a balanced diet is key to sustaining energy during the day. Breaking the fast with nutrition-rich foods, including fiber and protein, and suhoor or imsak, staying hydrated and avoiding excess fried and sugary foods are all instructions emphasized by the doctors in order to maintain a healthy body and mind during this blessed month. Manan Maafa gives us the details.
Ramadan is a month of spirituality and sharing, but it also tests the body. Every year, the same mistakes resurface: overeating at iftar, excessive fried and sugary foods, and insufficient hydration. The result: fatigue, digestive issues, and low energy. I am very cautious of what I eat. During Ramadan, I eat vegetable, fruit, and I drink a lot of water, and I always exercise before iftar time. Fasting, exercise, and healthy eating can go together with simple habits. Breaking fast gradually with nutritious foods, eat a balanced suhoor, and stay hydrated between iftar and dawn. When discussing the best foods for Ramadan, we focus on balanced meals, starting with fiber-rich vegetable soups, followed by a protein, meat, fish, or poultry. We should also include a small portion of carbs for energy. However, excessive salt intake is a common mistake and should be kept minimal. And the same thing goes for suhoor meal as well. Eating less but better foods is the key for a healthy Ramadan. Well-balanced diets which allow the body and the mind to enjoy this blessed month of fasting.
That's all. Thank you for joining us tonight. Hasfalkum.